Brown 45! Brown 45! Hot, 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 hot!
You are listening to Any Given Sunday, Australia.
Yes, hello and welcome to the Any Given Sunday Australia Summer Series, the series where we find out why Australians love the game of NFL. Joining us today is a man that I believe, looking through all your socials, mate, that you have just made NRL and having the most fun with it that you can, and I can only introduce you one way, as the Rugby League Guru. How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. Thanks for having me on. I was just saying here before, it's obviously state of origin time for me at the moment, so it's all a bit hectic. I'm looking forward to talking about something else for an hour or so. Another little passion of mine.
We obviously know we'll talk about in a second who you go for, so it'll be a very interesting hour of who we're actually going to talk about while we're talking about that for the hour.
It's more so about who we don't have at the moment than who we do have. We're in an interesting spot. We'll get into it, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And look, we'll get straight into it. How did you actually first get into the NFL? Obviously, a lot of NRL players have tried to go across over the years. Is that kind of the way it kind of started?
No, mate, to be honest with you, I think my avenue probably started, I assume a lot of Aussies just playing Madden with mates. And then that's how I learned the game, essentially. Fell in love with it from that side of things. And probably when I was a bit younger, like in my early teens and whatnot, I probably just didn't have access realistically to be able to watch games week in, week out. I think they used to have a game or two on occasionally on one of those weird Channel 7 extra shows or extra channels or whatever it was. So I might watch one a month or whatever, but Madden was like one of our main things when I was a teenager. So I think that's what got me into it. And then I'm sure we'll talk about it a lot, but the thing that I love about the NFL is almost the stories around it. I think it just does the storytelling better than anyone, as per a lot of American sports. So getting into a couple of podcasts and everything over there really started to hook me into it. So yeah, that's probably been my main avenues into it.
I'm just curious, before we get into your team and how you came to support that team, but just following up on that, do you, in the approach that you've had with NRL, which has been pretty inventive, like you've created your own space and your own, a different place for people to belong and talk about rugby league, in a way that, to me, I feel almost like you've learned from the way the NFL do it. There are all those stories, there is that approach, and if you have the right people and microphones and cameras, then you can actually, you can take control of how you tell those stories about the sport rather than just watching the same old people on TV.
And you're 100% on the money. I think in rugby league, I think that there is a lot of negativity constantly, and that's always what's been sold and what people have brought into. But I think audiences are starting to mature nowadays, and I think they don't just want to sit down and watch the TV on Fox, whatever it is, where there's just four dudes yelling and screaming at each other and, carrying on. So I think, it's not just myself. There's a lot of people in the rugby league space that have taken a similar avenue that I'm lucky enough to work with today. I think that it is. I think now it's more open than it ever has been for anyone to be able to do what I do. Essentially, you've just got to be willing to work for years on years on years, and eventually it will come through. But it's funny, I started my page. It's weird for me now because, people will find my page and they go, this guy calls himself the guru. What a dick. and I'm sort of like, I can't push back on that. But it all started for me when I actually joined an NFL fantasy comp for the first time about 9 years ago. I had no idea what I was doing because I only knew about my team. So I went on Twitter or something and I found a guy called the Fantasy Guru. And I followed his advice all year. And I didn't win it, but I came second or third, which was 10 spots higher than I should have. And off the back of that, I just thought, geez, there's no one really doing this and hitting it out of the park or doing it properly in the NRL. So, mate, that's where the Guru name came from. It all started with NFL fantasy and me getting into that and being too competitive with my mates to just suck at it and accept that. So I had to find a way to do it. So I was glued to I'd love to meet the dude because he'd be out there. I'm pretty sure he's doing well now. I think he might have changed the name since, but without him, mate, my life would be completely different.
He couldn't keep up with you after you put the name Gurus.
Something like that.
Do you have mates that genuinely just, like, you'd be like, what's his real name? You're like, it's Guru, mate. I don't know what the fuck it is.
Yeah, it's a bit like that, mate. Like, a lot of my mates in my space, that like mates I've made through work and whatnot, through rugby league, wouldn't have the slightest clue what my name is. No idea whatsoever. We had a night in at the studio where we had about 30 fans in, watching footy and everything, and my producer was trying to get my attention, and she was going, Roo, 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 and I couldn't hear her, and then she went, Nathan, and the whole room went, what the fuck? It's like finding out it's Bruce Wayne, like it's bizarre. Yeah, but like I've got, a little niece who, she can't pronounce everyone's names. Everyone's got their own little nicknames and whatnot, and, Nathan's too hard for her, so she just calls me Roo now. So it's even starting to just insert itself into general life, which is a good laugh, yeah.
So let's get down to it. Who is your team and why are they your team?
Mate, my team is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I've been going for them for about 20, 25 years. So when I was pretty young, I started going for them. And yeah, mate, to be honest with you, the story as to why, I really can't narrow it down. I'm not sure what it was. And as I've got older, I love that I go for the Steelers because of the history of the franchise and, in my opinion, what they stand for as a franchise. But I didn't know that at the time. I think I sort of just fell arse first into some good luck. And, during that period, we weren't, the best team consistently. We're up there with them, but we're always sort of in the Patriots' shadow a little bit. And I think part of me liked that we were a bit like the underdog each year, trying to take them on. In hindsight, though, looking back at it, there was probably still 25 teams below us consistently. But, I'm not sure exactly what it was or why I went for the Steelers, but once I latched on, I was pretty hooked early. And we had some early success, and we were pretty relevant when I first started watching. So it's been a bit tough the last few years, obviously. But, as to why, I really can't give you a proper explanation. I'm glad it happened, though.
You did say there, like, you like the Steelers, and I think you said, like, and what they're about.
Yeah.
Or the way they go about it. So what does that mean? Because I knew what you meant by that.
Yeah.
That there's what you would call Steelers football. And there's a few teams in the NFL that I think there's something classic and there's something about their approach that is a bit different. So what is Steelers football then?
To me, Steelers football is we just hang in the contest all the time. And in my opinion, sometimes to our own detriment, that we never get good draft picks. It's probably my biggest issue with being a Steelers fan is that, you talk about whatever the record is with Tomlin, like he's never had a losing season. And, we sort of hang our hats on that at times. Honestly, sometimes I wish we would have a losing season so we could be relevant on draft day and we could start to actually make some big moves, because I think right now we're sort of just stuck in this spot. But I also respect so much that the Steelers are a team that, like, we've had 3 head coaches. 3.
Yeah.
Like, it boggles the mind when you think about, there's coaches in the NFL who can have 6 bad weeks and they're looking for a new job. And our franchise has had 3 guys across, 60, 70 years, whatever it might be. And, even times where we've gone into, playoffs, and I know we are no hope to win it, but I know that teams don't want to play the Steelers because they know they're going to be in for a fight. They know they're going to have to get in the gutter. They're going to have to fight for every win. And, more often than not, we get out-skilled, we get out-talented. But I just love the fight that the franchise has constantly. Once again, to our own detriment at times. But it's just hard not to love that.
So the other question, before we keep going, let's get a bit Steelersy for a sec, if you don't mind, Tom.
Yep. No, go ahead.
The other question is, since Ben Roethlisberger, the QB position has been problematic.
Yep.
And now the question we were asking you before we hit record today was, do you guys really have a quarterback at the moment? And is it going to be Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, look, I'm very nervous about it being Aaron Rodgers, and obviously don't know Aaron Rodgers all that well personally, but from what I've observed over the last 3 years, obviously, but I just think for the last 20-odd years, to be honest with you, I just don't think he embodies what Steelers football is. And I know I'm probably going to get punched in the head in this conversation, and I'm willing to wear that. But I just can't imagine a world where he's our quarterback. The outside noise that comes with him, he's obviously supremely talented. And I think that, I think sometimes now people pretend like he's just a bum in the NFL. He's not. He's still a very talented quarterback. Obviously, he's got plenty to offer. But I don't know, I would rather us, go into this season with a younger quarterback, struggle, and maybe get a decent draft pick. I really like some of the guys, that are coming out of college next year. I'd love for us to be able to be in a position to grab one of those guys, because I think we are a system that we can develop guys when we bring them in. I don't think we need to turn to Aaron as a Band-Aid for 2 years. I'd rather go through a tough year to get us back into where we should be, which is competing for Super Bowls year in, year out.
You say to your own detriment that it's 20, 21 seasons now, you haven't had a losing season per se, but I think a lot of that comes because of Coach Tomlin. Is he not the kind of guy that could bring Aaron in and, dispel all those outside noise and actually get him to play football?
Yeah, he could potentially be, but it's not a risk I want to take. I just think Aaron and some of the... I just think the outside noise, mate, and I love that some of the Steelers players have come out in the last 6 months or so as Aaron's waiting to make a decision, gone, mate, if you want to be a Steeler, you should have been here yesterday. And I love that attitude. No one's bigger than the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're not built on anyone's shoulders. We're a franchise that I think will be the same, hopefully, in 40, 50 years, that where no star is bigger than the Steelers, and I really respect that.
In 40 years, you'll have 3 head coaches. So
quite possibly, and you know what? Probably to our own detriment to some extent, but I love that we're a franchise that isn't bent over by stars in the league, that isn't... that we stand on our own 2 feet and we just find a way.
It does feel completely contrary to how Coach Tomlin goes about it. He wouldn't suffer Pickens, like attitude issues with Pickens.
Yeah.
And even those, really, a lot of his attitudes were just he wanted to be winning when they weren't, or he wanted them to be better on offense when they weren't. But you can't imagine Mike Tomlin is going to bend around Aaron Rodgers at all, because that shakes the belief that the players have in him and the way that he leads them, that he is a rock. He doesn't, he's hard but fair.
Yep.
And that goes out the window if you start treating one person that cares more about themselves than the team, if you start treating them differently.
Yeah, and you know what? To Tomlin's credit, I think he has bent that in the past. Le'Veon, AB, how did that play out for us? Getting out of a helicopter to arrive at training, that's not Steelers. It's not even a little bit Steelers. Let one of the other tyre fires do that stuff. As much,
80s Cowboys, maybe Vegas Raiders, launch season.
And look, really, if Aaron walked in there tomorrow, honestly, how many spots are you shifting us up the ladder? Realistically. It doesn't put us into Super Bowl category, in my opinion. And that's if it all goes well, which, with all due respect to Aaron, his track record says it probably all won't go well.
You're in an elite division as well, which makes it
super tough.
Harder,
which is why I respect the Steelers in that it is the temptation just to get a quarterback in is huge. But I think you just got to think about the bigger picture. Because if we get Aaron in, sweet, okay, maybe he stabilises us for a year or two. Baltimore's not going anywhere. Cleveland's not going anywhere. What are we? Where are we going to? We're going to be in the same spot in 2 years' time.
So you mentioned Madden, you mentioned the stories and those kind of things that bring you in. But what is it about the NFL that's kind of drawn you in? Was it Madden first, or was it the stories first, or what actually brought you in?
I think it was Madden first, mate. Definitely Madden that got me interested in it. I remember. I think it's the 2004 Michael Vick Madden. That was the one that I fell in love with. 04, would that be right? 04, 05, around that mark? Yeah. I love that game. I remember playing that game when I was in high school, which would have been, and even then now, our early 20s, that'd be, you'd come home after a night out or whatever, and you'd be sitting around the lounge room and we'd play that, and it was 10 years old at that point, and we just loved that game. So that was the one that got me into it, but then I think it is, mate, the storytelling, and obviously the world's changed, and there's podcasts and everything every single week, and I know he's a very polarising character, but I just find the way that he does his show very interesting. Colin Cowherd, who I listen to quite often, I've based a lot of what we do at Guru off his sort of approach to how he does things. He can be a polarising guy, but I think that's what makes people interesting at the end of the day. And for me, boys, if I have a spare hour and I have nothing to do, I will absolutely launch into an America's game every day of the week.
Oh yeah.
They are just if I had to tell someone how to get into it, start there.
Well, that was the next question I was going to ask was how do you explain football to someone who doesn't understand it? Because I find that's the question I have a lot when I say how much I love NFL and Australians wonder why. Obviously, I agree. If you just watch back-to-back America's game, you'll come out loving it. But how do you explain NFL to someone who doesn't understand the game?
I think, mate, understanding NFL, I think there's two ways to look at it. I think the automatic way is for people to understand the rules. Personally, I don't think that's the avenue to go down. I think it's understanding the history of the game, the storylines around the game, what it means to people as well. I think that's the key to it. So instead of reading a rule book or having someone explain it to you or whatnot, I just think sitting down, watching a few America's games and understanding where the game's come from, where it's going, I think that's the way to go about it. Because, as I said, I think storytelling is one of the most important things in sport. I don't care what sport it is. You know, like I personally, I have no interest in UFC whatsoever. It's just not for me. But they've got so big because they tell stories better than anyone, and they allow their fighters to be their own stories, be who you are. I think it's the best thing the UFC has done is that, and it's one thing I hate about rugby league is we try and make rugby league a game for everyone, when realistically it's a game for a select few who are lunatics. And UFC has just lent into that, and I think it's fantastic. They just take ownership of who they are and what they are.
You follow such a storied franchise, mate. Is there a certain player over the time that just that's your all-time favourite?
Big Ben's always going to be hard for me to go past. And you could probably say the same thing for two or three other quarterbacks in the same era, like Peyton Manning and whatnot. But I just think if Tom Brady didn't exist, I think Ben would have won a few more Super Bowls. And he won two. An incredible achievement. Like, without having the numbers in front of me, there would only be three or four quarterbacks that have won more than that, realistically. What Big Ben achieved was fantastic. And once again, you talk about Aaron, how he's not what the Steelers are. Big Ben is. He's hard to knock over. He's going to hang in the fight. He doesn't look like your other quarterbacks. He does things a little bit differently. But he just embodied what we were about for so long. And I'd like to think that we're close to maybe filling that hole, but honestly, boys, we could be a decade away from still filling the Big Ben hole realistically. Like, I just think there's better quarterbacks, but I don't think there was better quarterbacks for the Steelers.
I think that's a really good way to put it. Do you have a favourite current player? Like, could be Steelers, could be playing for anyone. Is there someone that you see today and you just think that the way they play the game, that's what I like?
Yeah, there's a few. Like and you know what? I've started to get into my NFL fantasy the last few years. So we took a bit of a flyer on, not a flyer, but I think we got him round 3 or something. So we took Derrick Henry, and he just had this unbelievable. And it kills me to cheer on Baltimore every Monday. Yeah. It kills me, but just respected so much what Derrick Henry did this year. I loved watching him play. I love as well, boys. Like I know a lot of people are anti-Chiefs and all that. Like, I love watching a dynasty and a good system. I just absolutely love it. I always look at, you go online, you read all the stuff that it's, the refs in the NRL, they want the Chiefs to win. And I just always think, like, hold on, you're telling me the NFL has cheated their entire system to benefit Kansas. That's the big franchise they've decided, let's put all our eggs into this basket. Not New York, not LA, Kansas.
And it's giving the refs a lot of credit. The refs have done a great job of executing that strategy for that long.
Yeah, it's just
crazy.
It's insane. And, everyone jumping down their throat this year because of how it ended. Like, mate, there was 30 teams that didn't make the Super Bowl. But people will just take any opportunity to jump on these guys. And the conspiracy that doesn't exist all of a sudden? They forgot to do their job that day? Like, I love what the Chiefs have done. I think dynasties are really good for sport. We've got one in the NRL at the moment with the Penrith Panthers, and they've gone from the kids from the western suburbs that they were the underdog, everyone loved them, to now everyone hates them and they can't stand them. I think that is the ultimate compliment you can get in sport, that when you're successful, people start to hate you. It's the ultimate pat on the back, in my opinion.
Did you ever get the chance, I'll always know it as Heinz Field, did you ever get the chance to go over and see Big Ben at Heinz, or...? No,
I haven't, mate. I haven't actually been able to go to an NFL game yet. I'm actually we've got, long story short, we've got the Ashes returning in the NRL this year. So the Australian team's going over to England at the end of the year. And I've actually looked at the dates. It lines up with the game in Germany. So I'm sort of seeing if maybe I can make something work there. I haven't been able to go to a Steelers game. The closest I got, which I thought was pretty cool, boys, you'll like this, was the NRL has been in Vegas the last 2 years. I've been over each year. And last year when I went over there, the Super Bowl was on 2 weeks before that. So when we're on the field, sort of in the lead up to it, when there's captain runs or everything on and I'm there doing all my media stuff, like I looked down at one point and I was standing on the Chiefs logo that was on that field 2 weeks before. I thought, that's pretty cool. And then I did an interview later in the week where I sat at, they brought the Fox League desk that they did their cross to from and everything, and they had the chairs there, and I was sitting on my chair and I looked down, and on the leg of the chair it had a tag on it, and I flicked it over and it said Brady. Ooh. Which is where he'd sat 2 weeks earlier for the telecast, and I just thought, I haven't been to an NFL game, but my arse cheek and his arse cheek were connected to some extent, and it was genuinely, it was probably one of the coolest moments of my life going, that's unbelievable.
There's not too many people who can say that they've shared arse cheeks with
exactly right.
Brady, so that's huge. That's huge.
Just a surreal sort of moment. I just went, that is insane that my little sport of rugby league that's played on one coastline can get to this same field where a Super Bowl was played 2 weeks before. Just insane.
So you've mentioned Derrick Henry, so this is probably an obvious one if it is going to be down him. But is there any player in the league at the moment that you would take to bring over to the Steelers?
Honestly, the guy that I would pick, and this will probably be a controversial one, but it's Josh Allen. And I think it's because I respect where he's come from, that he's had to go around the hard way a little bit. He's very doubted at the moment. I think that he's just around in a era of just champion quarterbacks. I think he is going to be one of those guys, and I think he would fit in well at the Steelers. I look at, if there's Aaron and him, I just don't think Aaron has the characteristics that I'd want to build around, whereas I look at Josh, and I know he hasn't won a Super Bowl yet and that sort of stuff, but a guy that's doubted coming out of college and all that, a little bit unknown, and he's managed to fight his way up.
Wasn't he a corn farmer or something like that as well? Was that?
Yeah, you know more than me.
He's a corn farmer, and he worked on the farm. But yeah, I mean, it's not a controversial statement for at least a third of this conversation. But, Josh Allen is pretty special. But you're right. That's actually, the thing that I like about him as well. He had no offers. He went to community college. He played for Wyoming. There's nothing about that path that is. It's like the opposite of Shedeur Sanders.
100%. And, it's the polar opposite. Yeah.
But the other thing also is he got there and he wasn't accurate enough. Mm-hmm. And he's actually done the work to be the most, and then he turned the ball over too much.
Yeah.
And last year he turned the ball over less than any other quarterback because he works hard.
Yeah.
And I do think at the end of the day in the NFL, you don't end up on a team without insane talent, but it's the people that work harder that end up succeeding.
Yeah, for sure. And mate, draft day was obviously a controversial one this year with Sanders and whatnot, but there's not been many moments where I've been prouder of our franchise that we watched him sitting in his fucking bat cave of hats and ego and everything going on and went, nah, we're okay. We'll find someone else and we'll develop them. And I love that. Absolutely love it. And watching how that I've got nothing against Sanders. Don't know him from a bar of soap. But once again, you can eyeball a guy and go, no, not a Steeler.
It'd have to be a very flashy bar of soap. But I would say that it could also end up being the best thing that ever happened for him.
100%, yeah.
Because even you're having a look at how he's been in training camp with the Browns, and his attitude is completely different, and he does have to earn it. No one's going to hand him anything. Yep. That might make the man, in that situation.
He still has a bat cave of hats, though, so that's...
That is true. That's very good.
Yeah. And I hope it does make the man. I think that'd be an unreal story. Like, the kid's been told all of his life just how good he is constantly. He's been humbled on the biggest stage he possibly can. I think it'd be a great story to see him turn it around. And you know what? As much as it'd hurt me, it'd be great to see him kick the door in at the Steelers and go, this is what you missed out on. It'd be a fantastic story.
Great story. So if you played in the NFL, what position would you play?
I'm very interested in this.
Hot tip, I wouldn't, to start with. That's the short answer. Mate, I'm a big bit of gear, so I'd be up front there somewhere, but I think I'd be identified pretty quickly as scared of contact, and I'd be pulled from the field very, very quickly. So
Special teams decoy. Okay, good.
That might be it, yeah. I don't know where I'd be, but wherever it was, I wouldn't be there long, is the reality of it.
Did you
So
ever
not a
make
running
yourself
back, ground and pound for the Steelers.
Not a running back, no. I've got a decent shoe on me. Maybe I could have a little nudge, used to goal kick back when I was playing footy and whatnot, but still anywhere near the ability to be able to do anything like that.
We got some good mates at Pro Kick, mate. We might just give them a call and say we got someone with a shoe. But did you ever make yourself a character back in the Madden days and slot him somewhere?
Did I? Oh, I'm sure I fucking would have, without a doubt. I don't remember, but I'm
Can't
sure I
imagine
would
too many
have.
people were creating a guy and putting him in the O-line, though. Like,
Mate, could you...
That'd be awesome.
Could you do that back in... Because, mate, honestly, I don't reckon I brought another Madden game after that. I've still got it in my studio where we record things. I've got a lot of just old sort of dribbly stuff that means something to me. I've still got the Michael Vick 04 Madden sitting on a shelf there because it was sport for me as a kid. I just absolutely loved it. So I can't remember if you could make a character on that. I assume you probably could.
You would have been able to.
You would have been, yeah.
I don't reckon you can put him in the O-line, though. That'd be awesome if you could.
No, probably not. No.
You spoke about rules before and people getting in and not understanding the rules. Is there any rule that you either just don't understand or don't understand why we even have it?
Yeah, mate. There is still a lot of rules that I don't understand, and I'm a passionate fan. But as far as like the X's and O's and all that sort of stuff, I don't always know what I'm looking at. Like when I see a flag be thrown, I have never got any idea what it's for. I just don't have that analysis to be able to identify it. So I'm always waiting to see which way it's going to go, or all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of things I don't understand about the game, and I think that's the beauty of the game is that the depth of it is just so deep. There's so much to look into, and I love listening to these podcasts and you get new guests on and they'll say one sentence that for the next week of me watching the NFL, it'll just change my perspective completely. And when I look at like how I understood the NFL 10 years ago to how I understand it now, just night and day, and I know that there is still so much more for me to learn and take in, and just the beauty of the game as well, guys. Like you look at Lamar Jackson, like how criticised he was years ago when he first came in, running back playing quarterback, and the way the game has changed, and how, it's all about these running quarterbacks now, but you've still got, Pat Mahomes, a real slinger who's managed to be the successful one, and, Josh Allen's sort of a bit of a hybrid between them both. I just love the way that the game is changing and developing. Seemingly just every week it changes.
It's one of those things, it feels like unless you're Bill Belichick, you don't know enough about football yet. Like, it doesn't matter who you are in the world.
Yeah.
You literally haven't learned it all. It's and you can go your whole life and you'll never finish it.
And I mean, even if you're Bill Belichick, it's not aging great, let's be honest here. From where it was a decade ago where he couldn't get anything wrong and whatnot, it hasn't aged overly well for even Bill, which just shows how much the game has changed in a short amount of time again.
I wonder if once he's busy coaching again and has less extracurricular time, he'll look a bit wiser.
I don't know what you've seen about Bill lately, but he's living pretty happy.
Yeah, he's doing well for himself, 100%.
He may have figured out a whole other sport we don't know about. So what is your favourite football movie?
I would assume 80% of the time people say, remember the Titans, don't they? Have to be up there with your most common answers. Mine's not. It's right up there, the Titans. But, boys, I love The Replacements. Keanu Reeves, Footsteps Falcon. I reckon that one's an absolute cracker. Very underrated.
That's good.
The amount of people you talk about it with and they don't know what it is. I reckon that is a flick, that one. That's like a Sunday hungover special for me.
That's an absolute classic.
Yeah, I saw it the other day. They pick up the car and they flip it on these heads.
Yep.
He's in a row, and he's fuck. Yeah, great movie that one.
Unreal. Yeah,
that's good. What about this is Charlie's favourite. Everyone hears it. I think you would have heard it on the night of the NFL draft in Melbourne, draft day. So most people either think it's the greatest movie or the worst movie all time. Where are you sitting with that?
Mate, I'm on the side of the greatest. And until you asked me that question the other day, I didn't realise it was a bit of a piss take thing, whether you love it or hate it. And I when you asked me that question, I actually thought, geez, that's a weirdly pointed question, like picking out that movie. That was bizarre. I was talking to Kat about it as I went home, and I go, that movie's a cracker. Anyway, I then jumped on Google and realised that it is a very divisive sort of movie, isn't it? Like, people either love it or hate it. I'm a fan. It's corny, but it's what it should be.
I'm pretty sure we saw it this year at the draft. So
Yeah, back that.
All right, so what do you reckon is the hardest part about being an NFL fan that lives in Australia?
I think the automatic question is the time zone and whatnot, obviously. But for me, boys...
So are you a 3 a.m. guy? Are you a guy that gets up to watch it live?
Ooh, I'm probably a 4 a.m. guy. If I'm completely honest. But I will always... And, I sort of, during the NFL season, which thankfully is mostly during NRL off-season, I will kind of structure my weeks so that I'm freed up on a Friday so that I can sit there and consume. Monday, I can't do anything about that. I get a slot from 4 a.m. to about 9 a.m. where I can watch, and then I'm just sort of keeping track of it on the laptop. But Fridays, I'll always make sure I'm free. I'm always checking to see which of my NFL fantasy players are playing on Friday so I can tune in and enjoy it. But boys, I think for me, the biggest challenge is the average person over here. I don't know what it is with Australians, but they just hate anyone enjoying American sports. And I think what does make it hard is that you get your real diehard Aussie American fans who they almost gatekeep the game a little bit to the point of if you don't know it inside out, if you're not getting up at 3 a.m, then you can't enjoy the game. And I even saw it the content of the party that we went to a few weeks ago of people in the comments like, these aren't real fans, but all this sort of, it's just like, guys, you're never going to grow the game here if you keep gatekeeping the thing. People are trying to learn about the game. People are trying to get involved with the game. Actually let them do it. Let them enjoy it. I find that really difficult. And even in my space, boys, I say it all the time that the NRL needs to be taking things from the NFL and learning from what they do. Our season is 27 weeks long. That's outrageous. I always say the NFL is king because there's 17, 18 weeks, whatever it is. Every game matters. If you lose 3 games, that's dire straight. If you lose 3 games in the NRL, no one gives a shit because you've got another 25 where you can make up for it. So I love the way that everything matters in the NFL, and I think the NRL needs to lean into that a little bit more. I've always said we've got our magic round, which is the equivalent of gather round in the AFL or whatever it is. I'd love to see every NRL team that week lean into the old colour rush and just have those jerseys for that weekend so that when you look back in the history of the game, you'll always know that was Magic Round, that they were just wearing those colours. I think that sort of stuff's really cool. So I think that the hardest thing sometimes is just proper Aussie NFL fans pushing other fans away like it's their toy and no one else can play with it. I find that to be really difficult. I mean, do you guys experience that, or am I just being a bit over the top with it?
No,
yeah, I'm same as you. After the draft night party, there are some people who were just enthusiastic and happy, and some were like, these aren't real fans, you said. And it's just, everyone started somewhere.
You got to start
everyone
somewhere.
Got into a spot somewhere, and it's I think it would be so much better, rather than being such an asshole that no one wants to watch a game with you, to actually be heaps of people want to, you have a look. There's, I know, as a Bills fan, there's Bills bars in London. Yep. And they do a lock-in in the middle of the night to watch a Bills game. And it's you want that culture. You want that level of participation and enthusiasm. And it's growing. You see it at the NFL's Super Bowl party. There's lots of people there to do it. You need to build and be more inclusive. But it's the same you look at NRL, how much resistance there was to any women talking about NRL.
Yeah, 100%,
on TV or even on a podcast. And you get people being... just complete a-holes about it and saying, what would you know?
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, if you love the game, you love the game, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, 100%. And, mate, in the NRL, it's not a case of, when people were saying that. People are still doing that. It's ridiculous. I've got Kat that you met at the party who's my producer, and she's one of... I think she is the only female, one of 2 females that are not in the, Nine and Fox sort of realm that are, talking about rugby league and whatnot. And thankfully, boys, I've built an audience of, in my opinion, just good humans that aren't... I've got a pretty strict no dickhead policy in my community. So, it's been great in my community, but I do see comments elsewhere and stuff like that, which is just... It's just wild. But yeah, I do think NFL in Australia is definitely growing, but I do think those real diehard fans that actually know the game well, that could actually help introduce more people, I think sometimes they push people away with their carry-on a little bit. So it is something that I'd like to see change there, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And we've been speaking to Kat. We'll be getting her on too. Don't worry about that.
No, she's good. You'll love her.
You're 100% right. I don't think I actually thought about it until you've said it, and now you think every time you speak to someone who, like, yeah, I've been watching for 20 years. I watched when it was on ABC and blah, blah, blah. The first question they ask is, do you get up at 3 in the morning? I know Charles, we just asked that one, but that's the first thing. Do you get up at 3? Like, if you say, nah, not really. Like, you don't enjoy the fit, like, enough. Like, no, I do, but I also, have to work and have to sleep. So
yeah. And mate, it's the same as me. My job means that I have to watch 8 games of rugby league every single weekend. Like, if I had fans that want to listen to my podcast and I tested them all, do you watch all 8 games every single weekend? Do you sacrifice every family event so you can watch football? And if they say no, I say the door's that way. Like, yeah, that's right. It's ridiculous. It's
you should just say, thank God for a KO Mini, and that's what keeps us all alive.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's the thing these days is we have everything. Every game is available. You can watch them in 30 minutes if you wanted to. Like, you don't have to be watching them live, which is huge these days. Charlie, you've got the last one to finish, but before we get to that, I can't thank you enough, mate. You've said this is Origin time. This is a busy time for you. So to give up the hour that we've been on here and talk Steelers mainly, if somehow there was Bills involved for a fair portion, which it always seems to get that way. But yeah,
we should plan Aaron Rodgers for you Packers fans for a little while. That was all right.
Yeah, well, I was talking about more the Jets than the Packers. He was good at the Packers. The last one from me, mate. Have you ever, and just watching and listening to your podcast and now speaking to you live, have you ever met Darren Lockyer and done much? Because you two together, just the vocal cords, it's just pure bliss.
Mate, it's funny, actually, and I actually haven't spoken about this at all on the podcast, so this will be a bit of an exclusive, but, mate, Darren Lockyer is actually like a ridiculous length of like a 5th or 6th cousin of mine.
Oh, no.
Yeah, via marriage, and like my grandparents have told me about it before, and I actually haven't thought about it until 3 seconds ago when you said that. But yeah, he is a long distant cousin via marriage or someone's postman or something ridiculous that I've been told about. So it's funny that you mentioned that. But yeah, I'd rather be associated with a blues grade if you can, please, mate. Especially this time of the year.
Get brought down through the family. That's the only thing.
That's good.
Last question quickly before we go, and just reiterating what T-Mac said, just great to meet you, great to have you on our show, and we really appreciate your time, and we're big fans of everything that you do. What would you say to convince someone to follow the NFL?
So, in general, boys, people that tend to be in my circles are rugby league nutcases. For the start, it's in the off-season. It's in the perfect time for rugby league fans to be able to consume something. I would just say the storylines, boys, and I'm sort of going around in circles here a little bit, but I just think it's the key to everything that's got me interested in the NFL. And, like the passion I have for my Steelers is built off the storylines of the Steelers, that we have been, arguably the most consistent franchise that's ever existed, that we have a storyline of we're just going to fight for every single bone at every single moment. And then you have a look at those, 30s for 30s, you have a look at America's game, just the storylines that are told in America and the way it's done. I think that stuff is more important than the actual rules of the game. I think it is so much more important. I think that's the avenue to getting people into it. And I think it's also in my sport, in the NRL. I think it's something the NRL doesn't take seriously enough that we need to do more of. I'm not sure in the AFL down there whether they do more, less, better. I've got no idea. But I know that when I compare what we do in the NRL compared to what happens over there in America, it's just not even close. And I think that every single team, franchise, whatever you are in the world, you should have a camera recording 24/7. And you should just be ready for any moment or anything that can happen. I just think the NFL does that so well. And I love the way that via that storytelling, the NFL just embraces all of its characters. And, they're not all good characters. You need villains as well. And the NFL's got plenty of them. And they always have. And they always will, because they will lean into that stuff as well. I think the key to getting into the NFL is understanding the storylines, understanding the rivalries as well, which I think is something that we think we do really well in the NRL. But when you look at the NFL, you go, oh, no, they do rivalries proper.
Yeah, it's 10 times bigger over there.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's incredible. Like I said, mate, can't thank you enough for giving up your time. And Where do those who don't know where you are, which is a surprise by going through all your socials and things like that, where can we find you, mate?
Yeah, at Rugby League Guru. We're on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We're all over the place. Instagram is our main sort of kitchen, but then we've got YouTube, the podcast as well. So yeah, mate, we're all over the place. On the Bloke in a Bar podcast, we do work with Hello Sport. We're sort of get our face everywhere we're wanted and everywhere we're not wanted. So you won't miss us.
And now when the Steelers have a big story or a game, mate, we'll be getting you back on for sure.
Yeah, boys, whenever, always keen to jump on. I don't know how much help I'll be to you, but I'm always keen to give my thoughts.
Legend, mate. Appreciate it, and good luck to the Steelers this year, mate.
Cheers, boys. Appreciate ya.
Thanks, Guru.